Welcome to our 10-minute table talk, everyone. I am Pastor Holman. Thank you so very much for joining us here today. Today I want to talk about the power of prayer. In Matthew chapter number 6, beginning at verse number 5, it says this, "And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. And when you pray," verse 7 says, "do not use vain repetitions as the heathens do, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words." These are some powerful statements that Jesus says in Matthew chapter number 6, beginning at verse number 5. In verse number 5, he says this, "And when you pray." He seems to indicate that prayer should be a normal part of our lives. Prayer is not an option rather than a necessity. He says, and when, as to assume that we are praying, he says, since you are praying, let me tell you how to pray. So he says, when you pray, not if you pray, but when you pray, don't pray like this. He starts off with a negative by saying, don't pray like these people that I'm getting ready to tell you about. When you pray, don't be like the hypocrites. The word hypocrite there is our English word for actor. They are playing a role that they obviously are not. He says, when you pray, don't be like the actors, because they are acting for the applause. They are acting for the standing ovations. They're not desperately seeking me through prayer. They are acting so that the people can give them applause. When you pray, don't try to sound eloquent. Don't try to put words together as to make people say, man, that person sure can pray. Man, they sure can commune with God. That's what the hypocrites do. The hypocrites pray not because they're seeking God's face, but that they want to win the approval of men. He says here that they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. They love to pray in large settings. They love to be asked to pray as they can display their biblical prowess. They love to pray in the synagogues in Jesus' day, but in our day in the sanctuaries, so that they can be seen by men. And Jesus said these words, "Assuredly, I say to you, they have received their reward." Because what they're looking for is not affirmation from me, the Father to which they are supposedly praying to. They're receiving affirmation from men. And he says, "Assuredly, I tell you, they have received their reward." They got the hand claps and attaboys from the people who heard them pray so eloquently. But in verse 6, he says, "But when you pray." Now here's the opposing view to not praying like the hypocrites. He says, "But when you pray, you ought to go into your room and close the door. You ought to pray in private to your Father who is in private. And as the Father sees you praying in private, he rewards you openly." Make no mistake about it. You are not effective in praying publicly if you're not effective in praying privately. If you don't have a prayer life privately, then all the words that you say publicly are just noise unto God. If you don't know how to pray in your own closet, but you will pray on the prayer line, that is a hypocritical prayer, because you don't have a developed relationship with God in secret. And so as I go to God in secret, I tell him about the affairs of my heart in a secret place, in a private place, in a safe place, and then God rewards me openly because I was transparent with him privately. So he says, when you pray, go into your closet, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and then he will reward you openly. Verse 7 is very interesting because he says, and when you pray, don't use vain repetitions as the heathen do. Notice that Jesus said heathens pray. Notice that Jesus said that heathens, those who don't know the Heavenly Father, pray. So he says, when you pray, don't use vain repetitions like the heathens do. When people pray, it doesn't move me one way or another. I know that even the devil can pray. Even the devil knows how to put together a nice little cluster of words to make it seem as though he's in commune with God. But he says even heathens pray. Even people that don't know God bless their food. Even people that don't know God get down on their beds at night and say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Even heathens say that. But he says, when you pray, don't be like them because they think they will be heard because of their many words. I'm reminded of a man, Joseph Hickenbottom. This was a good friend of mine who actually was the facilitator when I got licensed to be a LPC back in 2003. He said, let your prayers be short and your thanksgiving be long. Let your prayers be short and your thanksgiving be long. He would always say that those who pray deep and heavy, long prayers have not been talking to God very much. Have not been talking to God very much. But if I've been talking to God all day long, he says, let your prayers be short and your thanksgiving be long. Live out in thanksgiving the rewards that God has given you through private prayer. It was Martin Luther that said that when I wake up in the morning, I assume that the best thing that I need to do to get prepared for the 24 hours in this day is to spend my first 3 hours on my knees. He understood the power of prayer. James, the half-brother of Jesus, to which we get the epistle James in the New Testament, was called the man of prayers because his knees were calloused because he would pray so much. Here's a question that I have for you. How's your prayer life? Your public life is just an indication of your private prayer life. If your public life is out of whack, it's because your private prayer life is out of whack. How's your prayer life? How much do you pray? Do you believe in the power of prayer? Do you even understand why you should be praying? What's the purpose? What's the benefit? Do you know? Do you understand? Because if you pray more than you complain, maybe some things will change. Jesus has some clear indications for those of us who believe in the power of prayer. We need to understand that God listens. We need to understand that God responds. And we need to understand that prayer is not to conform God to our will, but that we would be conformed to His will. Our prayer list should not be our prayer time should not be a grocery list of things that we want from God. Our prayer time should be a time in which we're saying, God, mold me into the image of which you want me to be. Help me to accomplish what you have laid before me. Help me to be faithful in areas of my life. We are to be conformed to the image of God through our time in prayer. So Jesus said in verse number 8 of Matthew chapter number 6, he said these words, when you pray, pray in this manner. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we have forgiven those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. That's how he told us to pray. That's how he told us to pray. Look at your prayer life. How effective is it? Re-examine your prayer life. Understand why you need to commit yourself to it. And then be bold enough and faithful enough to go to God in secret so that God can reward you openly. Until the next time, God bless you and may God keep you.